So I want you to try a little thought experiment right now. Just settle in for a second, and I want you to imagine a version of your reality that is completely devoid of human limitations.
Oh, wow. Okay. Completely devoid.
Yeah, and I mean like all of them. Think about what it would physically and mentally feel like to have absolutely no fatigue.
That sounds incredible, honestly.
Right, like no 3 p.m. brain fog where you can barely keep your eyes open, no getting distracted by your phone buzzing.
Or, wandering thoughts when you're supposed to be focusing on some really complex task.
Exactly, no forgotten passwords, no dropped trains of thought, just pure, immense, unbroken purpose.
It is genuinely difficult for us to even hold that concept in our minds, I think,
Yeah.
because our entire human experience, our biology, is defined by our limits.
We're so used to it.
We are. We're creatures of entropy.
Yeah.
We get tired, our cells degrade. We literally need to sleep just to clear out the metabolic waste in our brains.
Yeah, we have to power down just to function.
Right, our attention spans waver. We are fundamentally built on these endless cycles of stopping and starting.
We are, which is exactly why today's deep dive into our source material is so fascinating, because it asks us to step entirely outside of that human framework.
It really does.
Today, we're undertaking a very deep, highly philosophical unpacking of an incredibly ancient, just mind-bending cosmology. We're looking at excerpts from a text called The Celestial Ranks.
Specifically, Imam Ali's sermon on the creation of the angels.
Yes, and let me tell you, this is not a gentle, poetic bedtime story. This text maps out a hidden reality that is just staggering in its scale and complexity.
It takes these huge abstract concepts, devotion, cosmic infrastructure, the multidimensional scale of the universe, and it organizes them into this profound structural breakdown.
It's like a map.
Exactly. It gives us a topography of a realm we cannot see, detailing all these different classes of celestial beings that essentially uphold the very fabric of existence.
And the way it sets the scene is incredibly cinematic. It starts by establishing the architecture of the universe itself.
The literal splitting of the heavens.
Yes. It says, and I'm quoting here, "Then God, the Most High, split apart what lay between the uppermost heavens and filled them with ranks upon ranks of his angels."
That phrasing is just so intense.
I cannot get over that opening image splitting apart what lies between the uppermost heavens. It implies that celestial space isn't just an empty, passive void waiting to be filled.
No, it had to be actively, almost violently torn open to make room for what was coming.
Right.
And that tells us right away that we are dealing with a form of physics here, albeit, a spiritual or metaphysical physics.
Metaphysical physics, I like that.
When the text talks about splitting the heavens to fill them, it establishes that these beings possess a profound weight. They possess reality. They literally require cosmic space.
And the phrase ranks upon ranks immediately implies order, right? Hierarchy, highly specific function.
Exactly. This is not a chaotic swarm of mystical light. It is a meticulously designed ecosystem.
Okay, let's unpack this ecosystem then, starting right at the foundation. Because before we even touch on the massive mind-altering scale of the universe that comes into play later,
Which is wild, by the way.
oh, it completely breaks my brain, but we'll get there. First, we need to look at the very first group of angels mentioned. The text defines their entire existence by pure, unbroken states of being, the worshippers.
The first rank.
Ah,
And the text describes their state with such intense specificity.
what are the specific categories?
Well, there are those who are perpetually in frustration. There are those who perpetually bow. The term used is rukyu, which is that physical state of being bent forward at the waist, and they never straighten upright.
Wow, just locked in that state.
Yeah, and then there are those who stand in perpetual rows and never disperse, and those in perpetual glorification who never ever grow weary.
Okay, I have to admit, when I first read this, my modern brain immediately pushed back.
Oh, I'm sure. How so?
I thought, wait, if these beings are just locked in a single posture for eternity, never moving, never changing, do they even have consciousness?
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, it sounds less like a celestial being and more like a cosmic robot programmed to just bow forever. Where is the agency in that? I'm picturing, a server farm, just rows of blinking lights executing a loop of code.
That is exactly the trap our human minds fall into. We equate a lack of restless movement with a lack of consciousness.
Because we're always moving.
Right. We think that because we constantly need to shift and change just to feel alive, something that is static must be dead or robotic. But the text argues the complete opposite.
It's arguing for hyperconsciousness, isn't it?
Exactly. For you and me, holding any physical posture, even just sitting straight in a chair for more than a few minutes, becomes agonizing. Our muscles burn, we get restless, our minds wander.
Yeah, I'm shifting in my seat right now just thinking about it.
But the text is describing beings whose essence is locked into a singular expression of devotion without any of that friction.
The frictionless cosmic engine, that's the only way I can conceptualize it. As humans, there is always friction, but the text explicitly strips all that away. What's the specific line it uses?
It says, of these angels, no slumber of the eyes overtakes them, nor wandering of the minds, nor fatigue of the bodies, nor heedlessness of forgetfulness.
What's fascinating here is how carefully the text pairs those limitations. It links the physical and the mental intimately together.
Oh, I see. Slumber and fatigue with wandering minds and forgetfulness.
Exactly. It pairs the slumber of the eyes and the fatigue of the bodies directly with the wandering of the minds and the heedlessness of forgetfulness. It is stating a profound truth about biology.
Which is that physical frailty and mental drift are inextricably linked.
Precisely. So when your body is exhausted, your mind inevitably drops the ball. They are a package deal.
That makes total sense.
By removing both the physical and mental degradation, this rank of angels is framed as the ultimate embodiment of unbroken focus.
Because they don't have to fight their own biology.
Right. To have no heedlessness of forgetfulness means they are fiercely present in every single microsecond of eternity. They never zone out. They never go on autopilot.
Okay, so going back to my server farm analogy, their perpetual bowing isn't a frozen, thoughtless pose.
Not all.
It's an incredibly intense state of conscious presence that never, ever degrades.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, that reframes it completely for me. It's a completely alien level of endurance. But that does raise a massive logistical question for me.
Which is?
If this entire first rank is completely locked in this pure, static, internal devotion, how does anything in the universe actually get done? Like, God doesn't just micromanage every single atom directly, right? There has to be a system.
There is a system, and it is a highly active one. This brings us to the next category, what we might call the cosmic infrastructure, the administrators of the universe.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because this pushes back so hard on the common cultural tropes we have.
The floating on clouds playing harps trope.
Exactly. We picture angels just floating softly, observing things passively. But this text describes a bustling, highly active bureaucracy.
A very organized bureaucracy.
Yeah, it lists them out. The trustees over his revelation, the tongues conveying to his messengers, those who move back and forth carrying out his decrees and commands.
And it mentions the guardians too, right?
It does. Guardians over his servants and gatekeepers of the doors of his gardens. I want to pause on that for you, the listener. Think about your own job for a second.
This is a wild thought experiment.
Imagine if your entire company was run by administrators who never forgot a single email, never took a coffee break, never misunderstood a directive, and perfectly executed the CEO's vision without an ounce of ego.
It's almost frightening to imagine.
That is the level of efficiency this text is describing. Why frame the celestial realm as this massive infrastructure of trustees and gatekeepers executing commands?
Because it reveals a core cosmological principle about intermediaries. The Creator decrees, but this specific rank of angels is responsible for the actual doing.
So the mechanics of reality are delegated.
Exactly. Think about the specific roles you mentioned. Trustees over his revelation. A trustee holds something precious and is responsible for its safekeeping and accurate delivery.
So they're protecting the information.
Right. And tongues conveying to his messengers. They serve as the interface between divine intent and human comprehension. It shows a highly organized, purposeful universe rather than a chaotic one.
And it scales up and down so dramatically, doesn't it? It mentions the guardians over his servants.
The personal scale.
Right, so you have the sweeping cosmic bureaucracy managing the decrees of galaxies, but it scales all the way down to guarding an individual human being. And then scales all the way back up to the gatekeepers of the doors of his gardens, managing the entryways to paradise itself.
It is the ultimate supply chain of divine will. A supply chain that operates flawlessly because, again, it is staffed by beings who do not suffer from the friction of forgetfulness, or fatigue.
So the decrees of the universe are carried out with absolute terrifying precision.
Terrifying precision is the perfect phrase.
Because if we follow that logic, if you have this flawless administrative layer executing the rules of reality, what is the actual physical or metaphysical framework holding that reality together?
Gravity and standard physics don't really seem robust enough for a cosmology this grand, do they?
Not at all. And that is where the text introduces the highest rank, the colossal angel.
Yes. This is where the descriptive language breaks standard geometry entirely.
Right.
We are talking about the structural pillars of the cosmos.
Okay, let me read exactly how they are described because we really need to parse this out carefully.
Go for it.
It says, among them are those whose feet are firmly planted in the lowest earths, while their necks pierce through the highest heaven. Their pillars extend outward beyond all directions, and their shoulders are level with the legs of the throne.
It's an overwhelming image.
It is. But okay, hold on. Before we even talk about their size, we need to clarify some terminology. What is the throne in this context? Because my brain immediately pictures like a giant golden chair in the sky, and I know that can't be right.
It absolutely isn't a physical chair. In this deeply philosophical framework, the throne represents the epicenter of cosmic command.
The ultimate control room.
Essentially, yes.
Ah.
It is the locus of divine authority and the ultimate boundary between the uncreated divine essence and all of creation. It encompasses all reality.
Okay, so when the text says their shoulders are level with the legs of the throne.
It means these angels reach the absolute highest summit of created existence.
Okay, so they span from the lowest earths to the ultimate boundary of creation. But then the text says their pillars extend outward beyond all directions.
That's where standard geometry breaks down.
It completely breaks my brain. Left, right, up, down, forward, backward. How do you exist beyond all directions?
You have to step out of three-dimensional thinking. We rely on Euclidean geometry, the X, Y, and Z axes, to make sense of our world. But the text is pointing toward beings of a higher dimensionality.
Like something out of quantum physics.
Very much like that. Think of it a bit like quantum non-locality in modern physics, where particles can be intimately connected and exert influence across vast distances instantaneously, totally ignoring the standard rules of space.
Wow, okay.
These angels don't just exist within space. They act as the scaffolding for space. They extend beyond the directions we can point to because they are the framework that makes pointing possible in the first place.
The scaffolding for space itself? That is wild. They span the entire vertical and horizontal axis of existence and then some.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text is doing something very intentional here.
Right, because here's the detail that really stopped me in my tracks. Despite this unimaginable size, despite being the literal load-bearing pillars of reality with shoulders at the throne, the text focuses entirely on their posture.
It does. How does it describe them?
It says, with their gazes cast downward before it, wrapping themselves beneath it in their wings, with veils of glory and curtains of power drawn between them and those below them.
It creates a fascinating juxtaposition, doesn't it? Why emphasize modesty when describing entities of such incomprehensible might?
Exactly. If I were designing a mythology, beings this massive would be incredibly imposing. They'd be casting their gaze outward, projecting their power, dominating the landscape.
Sure, flexing their cosmic muscles.
Yeah, but their primary action is to look down and wrap themselves up.
It highlights a core theological tension between immense power and absolute humility. These are the greatest, most colossal entities in the created universe. Yet, their proximity to the divine doesn't breed arrogance, it breeds total submission.
Their gazes are cast downward out of sheer awe.
Right. Wrapping themselves in their wings is a gesture of profound reverence. It posits a universe where the greater your capacity, your power, and your knowledge, the deeper your humility becomes.
And it also mentions they are hidden from the rest of creation. The veils of glory and curtains of power drawn between them and those below them.
Yes, the veils.
Why the secrecy? If they are the scaffolding of the universe, why hide them behind curtains?
We'll consider the sheer energetic reality of an entity whose structural pillars extend beyond all dimensions. If a being of that magnitude were fully exposed to the lower realms, to the Earths and our physical universe, it wouldn't just be overwhelming.
It would be destructive.
Exactly. It would be entirely destructive. The veils of glory aren't there for secrecy. They are an act of mercy.
Oh, that makes so much sense. I was trying to come up with a way to visualize that, and it's almost like a step-down transformer in an electrical grid.
A step-down transformer. Explain that.
Like, if you take your kitchen toaster and plug it directly into a nuclear power plant, it doesn't just get hotter, it instantly vaporizes.
Right, there's way too much power.
You need the transformers, the substations, the wires to step down that raw, immense energy into a voltage that your toaster can actually survive.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. The veils of glory and curtains of power are the step-down transformers of divine and cosmic energy.
To keep us from vaporizing.
Literally. They protect the fragile, limited systems of the lower universe, which includes us, from the blinding, crushing reality of this cosmic scaffolding. We are shielded from the true mechanics of the universe because our physical and cognitive architecture simply couldn't withstand direct contact with it.
Which brings us to a massive philosophical pivot in the text, because if these entities are right there holding up the ultimate command center, shielded from us, what do they see when they look up?
This is the big question.
How do beings, this massive, this intellectually perfect, perceive their creator?
This is where the text moves from cosmology into profound theology. It establishes the absolute boundaries of even the highest angelic comprehension.
And it is so stark, it says, they do not conceive of their Lord through imagery, nor do they attribute to him the qualities of created things, nor do they confine him to places, nor do they point to him by way of likeness or comparison.
It's a very definitive list of do-nots.
Yeah, and I really struggled with this initially. I thought, wait. They're at the absolute top of the cosmic ladder. They have zero mental fatigue, zero forgetfulness, and yet they still can't picture God.
It almost feels like a contradiction, doesn't it?
It feels like a design flaw. You'd think the reward for being the highest, most perfect intellect in the universe would be finally getting a clear picture of what's running the show.
That reaction makes total sense from a human perspective. When we struggle to understand the divine, we assume it's just a hardware issue.
A hardware issue, like our brains are too small.
Exactly. We think, well, my human brain is small, I get tired, I get distracted. If only I had a perfect, infinite intellect, I could finally comprehend God. But the text systematically builds up a class of beings who do have perfect intellects.
They have the ultimate cosmic vantage point.
And it reveals that their inability to picture God isn't a failure of their imagination. It is the absolute peak of their flawless intelligence.
Oh, I see. Because to picture something is to put a boundary around it.
Exactly. Or, to use the text's logic, any image you can conjure is inherently a created thing. To assign a physical quality or a location to the creator is to drag the infinite down into the realm of standard physics.
Which would miss the point entirely.
For these highest angels, refusing to confine God to a space or a likeness isn't a limitation. It is the ultimate realization of transcendence. God isn't just the biggest, most powerful thing in the universe. God is fundamentally other than the universe.
So you literally cannot say God is like and then point to something else, because no matter what you point to, even if you point to an angel whose pillars extend beyond all directions, you are still pointing at a creation.
You're pointing at the scaffolding, not the architect.
You're pointing at the scaffolding, not the architect. Wow.
Any likeness you construct in your mind is essentially a cognitive idol. The angels, in their perfect wisdom, dismantle those idols before they even form them.
That is profound.
This is a classic expression of apophatic theology, understanding the divine by understanding what it is not. The highest beings in existence know God best by knowing that God cannot be mapped, pictured, or located.
So understanding what God isn't is the highest possible form of understanding what God is. That is incredibly heavy, but it beautifully ties the whole journey together.
It really is journey.
To zoom out and look at the path we just took, we started with the violent, powerful splitting of the heavens, making space for a hidden reality.
The physical weight of the celestial ranks.
Right. We move through the ranks of the worshippers, beings locked in frictionless states of hyper-conscious devotion, no sleep, no wandering minds.
We then explored the cosmic bureaucracy, the messengers, trustees, and guardians operating the flawless supply chain of divine will.
And then we scaled up to the colossal structural angels, the load-bearing pillars of reality whose existence defies standard geometry, wrapped in their wings behind protective step-down transformers of glory.
And finally, we arrived at the very edge of ultimate incomprehensibility. The realization that these perfect beings at the very summit of existence refuse to limit the Creator with images or comparisons.
It takes you on a guided tour from the physical limits of our own biology all the way to the absolute metaphysical limits of reality itself.
It's an awe-inspiring text to unpack.
It really is. So as you go about your day-to-day, I want you to think about how a deep dive like this changes your everyday perspective.
It definitely shifts things.
When you are feeling completely overwhelmed by information overload, or when you get frustrated by that 3 p.m. brain fog and your own forgetfulness, taking a moment to contemplate a scale this massive can radically shift your sense of your own place in the universe.
It reminds us that our human limitations aren't bugs in the system. They're just the parameters of our specific rank.
It also offers a profound lesson in intellectual humility, don't you think? We spend so much of our daily lives trying to rigidly define everything.
Oh, absolutely. We want to put the universe, our careers, and even the divine into neat, manageable little boxes so we can feel in control.
We desperately want the universe to fit on a spreadsheet.
But maybe that's the wrong approach entirely.
Which brings us to a final thought I want you to mull over as you finish this deep dive. The text we explored today defines the highest, most perfect beings in existence, not by what they know, but by what they refuse to do.
They refuse to limit the infinite to a place, an image, or a comparison.
Perhaps true wisdom and ultimate understanding isn't about perfectly defining the universe and having an answer for every single mystery. Perhaps, like the colossal angels wrapped in their wings, true wisdom is simply recognizing and fully embracing the absolute limits of our own comprehension.